for a long time I worked for this little company here that had a strange business plan. It would, the idea was basically we would put on a TV show and people at home would watch and they would pick up the phone and actually order a product and we'd ship it to them. And it was a little company I was just started about 3 years before I joined. And we didn't really know much about the business, but eventually we learned that if we have famous people on the air, people will watch for longer and maybe buy more products. So within 5 years, you'd be walking down the hall and you'd hear Richard Simmons, blasting out a Broadway tune in the hallway. You'd see Joan Rivers' dog peeing over a potted plant. You'd see Victoria and Annette and Ernie and Tova. And we got used to that. That was life there. We got successful enough that we needed a bigger building, and senior management bought a new building and rehabbed it, and it was beautiful. The best part about the new building, there were a couple things. First, it had a beautiful front business hallway that led to this giant egg-shaped atrium that was 3 stories high with sunlight coming in. It was like a cathedral. It was beautiful. The idea with this atrium from the CEO was we were going to have these rallies here, bring the whole company together for positive, celebrate business successes, and it was going to be a great time to bring the crowd together and celebrate accomplishments. We also had this big studio state-of-the-art studio. Was awesome. So the night we launched the studio, we had a big 5-hour show, and we had all these celebrities there, all we could cram into 5 hours, plus a lot of those pseudo-celebrities, people that think they're the celebrities, they're hairdresser to the stars or makeup artists for the stars, and they were there too. And I remember walking through the studio with the vice president, and everybody's bustling, and you had all these Hollywood types and vendor types, and the vice president turns to me and goes, "This is like a Fellini film," because it was just it was such a bizarre intersection. And really, he's right, because for all these people, the big business types that came down from New York and the Hollywood types that would come in, 90% of the people that worked there were born and bred in the suburbs out here. They went to school here, they went to local high schools here in Delaware County, they went to local colleges. They were like us, and I saw many friends that started dating somebody else that worked there, got married, and then were raising kids, and it was basically suburbanites. But we had this crazy influx of people always coming in. Now everybody in the building had a TV in their cubicle. So on the morning of September 11th, obviously there was no turning away what happened. And we really felt like we were at the center point, because New York's 2 hours north, DC's 2 hours south, Shanksville's 3 hours west. And it really puts things in perspective. We're selling products on air and this catastrophe happens, and I remember calling my wife, "Should we take the kids out of school?" Everybody was in a panic that day, if you remember. And we were shell-shocked. So we went on, the executive team decided to go off the air for a day. A week after 9/11, in the atrium, we hold a memorial service and we broadcast it, a respectful moment of silence. A whole year goes by, business is kind of in the toilet, morale's in the toilet, as much of America is. We were all still in mourning. So a year later, we had had nothing positive in the atrium. We get together for another memorial service to commemorate a year of 9/11. And everybody, I think even senior management was in a bit of shell shock and saying, we just need to buckle down and work harder. And, but sometimes the spark is something totally something you can't fathom it would be. And the spark for us was this assistant buyer in one department was going to bring in Conair razors, like to cut your hair, to cut a man's hair, like a shaving kit. Conair had a spokesperson, and it was going to be on at Tuesday at 6 p.m. So the spokesperson was coming at 4 p.m. So this assistant buyer, without getting any authority to use the atrium, he sends an email to all the department assistants, like, this person's available, is going to do a meet and greet. Anybody wants to just show up in the atrium. If you've worked in a big company, the department assistants are the nerve center for the whole company. Once they get a hold of it, it gets spread all throughout the company. Well, and we're used to celebrities, but this person it was Mr. T, right? Right? Mr. T from Rocky 3, but different strokes, silver spoons, A-team, right, you know. Yeah, A-team's the most important, right. And so I go down around 3:45 to see if anybody's going to show up in the atrium, you know, because this was all like just this assistant buyer on the fly. Well, sure enough, around 3:45, people start walking by, go to the caf, get some iced tea, a couple cookies. Groups of 3 and 4 just start showing up in our atrium and standing there lingering. And everybody's just lingering, and like everybody's supposed to be, you know, going back to the desk and working. And sure enough, from where I'm standing, I can't see down the hall, but I mean, we get 25 people there, then 50 people, then 75. Then there's like 150 people in the atrium at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, on a totally non-authorized visit. And sure enough, I just hear a big applause, and here comes Mr. T. And and everybody's just like, it was just like such a big relief, because Mr. T is the epitome of America. I mean, he's a warrior, you know, he was the bodyguard for Muhammad Ali at one point, which is amazing. And he was very nice. He spoke, he got up on a couple chairs, spoke, he talked to a couple, he gave some women some hugs. He was just very nice, made some jokes about how cool it was to be there. And that was it, and he just walked away, and everybody went back. And then a week later, I'm in a meeting with some other directors, and they start talking about how the whole tone of the company has changed in the past week and how we had come over something. And I was like relieved, because I was thinking the same thing, like, all right, I felt better now, like we were getting over it. We had overcome some kind of grief. And they were saying they were seeing it in their departments, that we just needed some release. And Mr. T was the person that provided. And all I could say is, when we were talking about it, I just said, you know, the only thing it reminds me of is the ending of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, when they came out, the Who's came out in Whoville and started singing, because it was just that grassroots thing where everybody gathered in the atrium against their boss's wishes maybe, or whatever, and just came out and just needed a breath of fresh air and got together and gathered and had some fun. So, and business came back a short time later, and it's still booming over there. So that's my story. All right, let's see.